Welcome, Collective Defense League members. Upgrade, Master of System Patches and Vulnerability Removal, and Two-Factor, Master of Authorized Users. I've asked you to help me interview new superhero candidates.
Selecting new members is difficult since there are so many different superpowers and weaknesses to consider.
And many new heroes exaggerate their powers and minimize their weaknesses.
Let's bring in the first candidate, known as Backup.
Oh, mercy. Hi there, Backup. What is your superpower?
I can collect and protect all of the files, photos, and documents from the citizens I defend in case they are ever lost to disaster or attack.
That's great. How often do citizens test performing these backups?
Hardly ever, which is why I want to join the League.
Thank you for your time. We will let you know.
Next, I'd like to welcome two super twins, Insider Threat and Outsider Threat.
And what are your superpowers?
I can monitor all of your employees and find the ones that are stealing your data.
I have the latest threat intelligence and hunt evildoers with this information.
And what of your...
She forces you to become a surveillance police state like the NSA, where your employees have no privacy.
Oh yeah? If a new threat emerges, you have no ability to find it until it shows up in your precious intelligence feed. Ouch! Ow!
Okay, ladies, thanks for coming. We will let you know.
Welcome, Single Sign On.
I make it easy to access all of your applications.
And what is your weakness?
If I am ever compromised, I make it easy for hackers to access all of your applications.
Next!
Welcome, Data Lake. What is your superpower?
I consume all of your telemetry data and make it easy to search.
Super useful superpower. What is your weakness?
I have so much data, people forget what I know and don't know what to ask.
Next!
I am the compliance monster, and I make being secure as easy as ABC and 1, 2, 3.
Do you have any weaknesses?
Weakness? I have no weaknesses except for checking every one of my boxes. You miss one, and then I turn into the illusion of security monster. Ha 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 ha. By the way, Two-Factor, ever hear of Scattered Spider?
Only takes an unwitting help desk to authorize someone to bypass Two-Factor.
Next! Picking superheroes is tough.
We still have a few more. Don't lose hope. Up next is Lock In.
You don't look like you have any superpowers.
Actually, I'm here to make you a deal you can't refuse. You join my platform. You go all in on my cloud. I'll lower your IT costs and make things easy to protect.
Wow, that's great. What is your weakness?
If you ever try to leave, you will pay. And it will be painful, if you know what I mean, for your own good.
Next!
Next, we have Left of Boom.
And what kind of superpower do you have?
I raise awareness in citizens about the risks they are faced with, so they can be better equipped through training and tabletop exercises. You may also know me by one of my alter ego acronyms, COOP, BIA, or DR.
Man, I hate acronyms in our industry.
And what is your weakness?
In a city of 5 million, I've only prepared 500 for disaster and need to reach millions with my message.
Next! I can't believe how hard this is to pick new superheroes.
You may have seen this next hero in the news, CloudStrike.
CloudStrike. What is your superpower?
I protect citizens from attacks and ransomware when they work, when they travel, and when they access the internet.
Sounds great. What is your weakness?
Sometimes I prevent all citizens from working, from traveling, or accessing the internet. Just sometimes.
Thanks. We will let you know. Well, I guess we didn't get to add any new members to the Collective Defense League.
Do you think we were too harsh with our questions?
No. Every hero has a super strength and a super weakness. and we need to balance these to fight evil and keep the citizens secure.
Hi there, it's Ron Gula. I hope you enjoyed that video. And following up with that video about superheroes interviewing new superheroes for them, I'm going to be sitting down with Tom Quinn from T. Rowe Price. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing terrific, Ron. Thank you very much for having me today.
So I'm really happy you were able to join us. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be the CISO of a great financial organization.
Well, I started my career in the U.S. Navy. I was a surface warfare officer and was responsible for engineering on my ship and ship's navigation. Then I went to grad school for computer science, and then I've been in the financial services industry since about 1996.
What are some of the biggest differences for maybe people who do cybersecurity for small business and nonprofits versus the high-end financial industry? What are some big differences there?
I think one of the things is awareness of the industry and awareness of the products. I find that, especially for smaller companies, they may not realize how much help they can actually get and how much assistance there is for services and technology to help them solve problems.
And what are the 3 lines of business? I think people outside of finance don't know what that is.
So that's a great question. There is a regulatory requirement in many industries to have both an audit function, so that's one of the lines, an operations function, and that includes both tech and business. And then there's a third function, and that's called risk. And there's a variety of functions within the risk teams at firms, but they are all there to ask and challenge each other on what's going on and to get assurance that the controls are operating as expected.
And can small business learn from that? Like if I'm a dentist office, right? I mean, I might be helping people, secure their dental computers and whatnot. But how do I apply that to smaller businesses?
I think especially depending on how small it is, you may only be a dentist, right? And you're with an administrator. But I think you can approximate those by just asking your peers. Can you be my audit function? Could you be my risk function? And I think that peer is one way to do it. And the other thing, if you have the money, is to actually get in periodically people to come do that kind of audit like you would for your taxes.
All right. So the video is about, this interview is about buying cyber products, and didn't really want to lead people down too much of the financial industry, but you get to see a lot of different tech and your peers get to be a lot of tech. So I'm going to try to avoid asking specific questions about what are the products you're most unhappy with at T. Rowe Price, for example, right? But from an industry point of view, finance, what have your peers, what have you seen over the years? What kind of Magic Quadrant products have you deployed? How do you kind of see things chosen and deployed in the finance industry?
I think for many firms, especially financial firms, you've been required in many cases to have technology deployed for decades because you can't scale for trillions of dollars worth of things or billions of dollars worth of transactions without computers. And because of that, you've had the need to protect those computers as well. And as more and more of your customers have demanded online capabilities, you've needed to protect those things too. So for the financial services firms, we've been aware and practicing both technology and technology protection for decades.
And I like to joke that CISOs have layers and layers of defenses against vendors. So in your experience, like how does a vendor get your attention? Do they gift you tickets to the opera? Do they, do they tackle you at a trade show conference? How does that work?
I've seen quite a few examples and approaches for vendors to do that. But what I find is very effective for me, I actually leverage my relationships with either private equity or venture firms. If they're investing in particular companies, they have to have a conviction because they want their investment to actually turn a profit. So to me, that's a good signal that there's something to listen to. But I also listen to my peers. And I think it's very important too, where asking them about the problems they have and how they're thinking about solving them also informs me. But primarily, I understand the problems I'm looking to solve for, and I search for capabilities to help me solve those problems.
How often does one of your peers have let's just say a negative experience? Could be negative product, negative renewal cycle, that sort of thing. How often do they have a negative experience and that influences you or some of your other peers?
So that's a great question, and I would I'd start off with saying it's usually a negative experience is what will drive any purchaser, any decision maker to look somewhere else. Otherwise, you want to partner in a long-term way with the companies that you're using. Because that consistency over time is really what you want to drive for. There have been many instances where a peer of mine has had a bad experience. Sometimes that is the product itself. In many cases, it's because research and development has been turned off, and that just withers the product. In some cases, maybe they thought the product was going to solve more problems than it really could. And that's maybe an internal problem to deal with. And then lastly, sometimes it is a difference of opinion of value. And sometimes the vendor thinks the product is much more valuable than maybe the purchaser does.
I love your dancing around some delicate issues. I've been on both sides of this conversations, which is great. So in the intro video, one of the superheroes he was trying out was Lock-In. And, he's kind of got his mob guys there, and he's kind of basically making you a deal you can't refuse, right? So not without, naming any particular vendor, whether it's the OS cloud vendors or platform kind of vendors. How do people in the financial industry look at platforms, right? Are they a blessing or are they a curse?
So I'll talk about technology platforms, and I'll separate that out from security platforms. So in some cases, the technology platforms, there just may not be a choice. There's only so many market data companies. There's only so many trading companies you could potentially work with. There are really only a few cloud vendors, major cloud vendors, I should say, to choose from. So you have some constraints there when you're looking to protect and defend. I think for the defenders, one of the things I find is you do want some amount of consistency, but in general, the kind of problems we're trying to solve for are pretty variable. And sometimes that consistency or one product, they're not designed to solve all problems extremely well. They may be designed to solve one or two problems very well and other ones adequately. So by definition, we look for, in many cases, best of breed, and then we design our hiring strategies to hire engineers to knit those best of breed products together. And then over time, we look for ways where we can to consolidate, but we don't feel the need to start with consolidation as the primary objective. We really start with solving the problem.
So do any of your peers have sort of blanket, you can buy a product from this vendor, but you can't buy into the whole system, that sort of thing? People have good experiences, bad experiences?
I think that you'd find, Ron, that larger firms you'd have a balance about that. They'd want to leverage existing relationships for financial reasons, scale, complexity reasons. Smaller shops may also have the same thing, and it could be for similar reasons. I hate to say it depends, but it really does depend. I think that those kinds of edicts where you can only buy from one vendor, sometimes it incents the wrong behavior.
All right, so we got a question from Critical Infrastructure.
Hi, Tom. Big fan. Question. How often do you meet with superheroes, cybersecurity vendors, or does your team meet with them? And if your team meets with them, when do you find out when they are interested?
So Critical Infrastructure, what I would suggest to you is that the head of security in any company is going to find out. And the more that you're transparent, and the more certainly I expect my team to be transparent about who they're working with and why, there's likely a better outcome. One of the things I do find for, and I think this is hard maybe for the vendors themselves, salespeople and engineers, or even startup founders, they may be working with somebody on a team, they may be junior, and the junior person may be very excited about working for them, that excitement is not equivalent to a pilot, and it's certainly not equivalent to making a purchase decision because they may not have that authority to do so. So that's a cautionary tale.
It's an interesting question from a superhero. How much are you influenced? This is a tough question, right? But how much are you influenced by, and I don't want to throw any vendors or people with magic quadrants under the bus, but like, somebody writes a new blog on how you should be buying Zero Trust, or they come up with a new blog on new threats against, cloud systems deployed outside of the US and how GDPR might be at risk. How often does that rise to your attention and get any attention from you or your team?
So the information itself, I regularly keep abreast of what's going on. In some cases, subscribe to vendor periodicals or vendor information. It's not their product that necessarily is the interesting part, but really what problem they're really trying to solve for. Is it exactly a problem that I'm solving for? Have I thought it through enough? And have they raised any kind of issue or concern that I hadn't thought through? So I use it as a way to challenge me if I and my team have thought through the problem sufficiently. And if there really is something unique about the way they're thinking about the problem or how they've discovered a variation of the problem, I want to listen to them. It may not turn into a product purchase, but I very well may engage the vendor to understand what they want to do, how they're thinking about doing it. And long term, that kind of discussion could turn into something else, but it's not the purpose of the engagement.
And T. Rowe's are what, Fortune 10, Fortune 20? It's a big company, right?
It is a big company.
So
that's
across that those groups of large, financial folks, how many of them are buying products, if not cyber products, from a service provider and not from the vendors themselves?
That's another great question. We want to, so security teams, my team, we want to take advantage of the benefits of cloud like any other company does and any other team. Minimizing the amount of maintenance on the product, scale, efficiencies. Many cloud products, you get to benefit from the intelligence and the insight that their other customers provide based on their use of the product. So there's great opportunities there. And then there's cost opportunities, which we want to take advantage of as well. So where we can, we're big believers of cloud and cloud first. And we also recognize that there are real use cases where you may need to have something non-cloud based. I almost think about it like a diesel generator or an emergency generator. If your cloud electricity provider, well, your cloud provider or service provider goes down, you still may need to be able to fight. You still may need to defend, and you still may have to have your company operate. Blending that together is an important operational resiliency discussion.
So we kind of touched on this before, and I think one of the reasons we share a lot of commonality with how we think about cyber as far as defending the country and the role of the startup vendor, the platform vendor, and whatnot. But I originally wrote this question as, when do cyber vendors go bad for you? But I want to kind of retouch that and basically say, what's the role of a startup? What's the role of a platform vendor? What's the role of somebody who acquires all those? And how does that affect your attitude, and the quality of the product for people in the financial sector?
I love that question. One of the things that one of my approaches I take is I really do want to leverage scale, and I do want to leverage a capability that is ubiquitous in an environment. I recognize the fact that they can't be everything everywhere. So where there is an opportunity to get scale and cost, maybe even free, I want to take advantage of that, especially if it's adequate for the risk that I'm defending against. And what we continue to see, or I continue to see, is there are areas and gaps where new attacks come through, new risks are coming through that we hadn't thought about, maybe new businesses that we want to engage in. And often it's the startup companies that are seeing that ahead of some of the more established firms that are there. So we partner with these startups to make sure, I'd mentioned before about how I want to talk to vendors and companies about what they're seeing, how they're thinking about solving problems. I think the uniqueness about startup companies is they're unencumbered in many cases with the product themselves, right? The investment that they've made in large-scale product companies. And they may be thinking about the problem in a very, very unique way. I believe it's crucial, and it's one of the reasons why I spend time with venture firms and private equity firms and their portfolio companies. You need a healthy startup ecosystem for innovation and for new ideas to be able to push into reality. So I'm a huge supporter, and they play in a very crucial role.
So a lot of times for the startup companies that I help advise, I tell them, look, you don't want to call on the government or the DoD on day one of your startup business, right? So at some point you have to have the girth, critical mass where you can handle some of that bureaucracy. The financial industry is like one step below the complexity of selling to the financial government. So one of the things we've seen, and I'm curious what you've seen across the financial industry, is are there like easy landing programs for startup vendors where they can go through a program and sort of get gated and guided and get early answers for no, which is good. You don't want to engage somebody for 2 years and then say, sorry, we're not going with you. But are you familiar with anything like that? Do you do anything like that personally?
So I am familiar with it, and I do carry on in that way personally too. So there are many companies, especially large financial services firms, where they have formalized programs about either incubating or supporting startups, and they make it very easy to onboard. Many of those companies also have investment banking and capital markets functions as well. So they're complementary to each other, but the purpose of the former is really to incubate ideas and technology and all of the things that you would hope for in that easy pathway. Contracts that are simpler, administration practices that may be simpler. Those things are already baked in there. Lab environments that may be already created. For me in particular, and Ron, I think it's super helpful the way that you phrased that, which was how to get to know faster. I think it's crucial. I want to share openly and appropriately about the problems that we're trying to solve for and how we're thinking about doing that. If I can provide advice and guidance and that's it, I'll let the vendor know, the startup know. If I think that I could be a partner with them, I'll let them know that. And if I think I'm a sale, I'll tell them. I believe it's crucially important to make sure that it's not only open and honest communication, it's direct communication.
All right, we've got another question from another superhero here. Two-factor.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. How many pitch meetings do you go to? Are there things that happen in these pitch meetings that annoy you?
Well, I think for two-factor, it's a great question, and I am very much appreciative of it. I think that one of the most important things that somebody has is being cognizant and being respectful of someone else's time. And I really do appreciate that when I'm working with a startup. I do take, or any vendor, I do take calls I do take meetings on a periodic basis and on a regular basis. I probably meet with a vendor or startup maybe 4 to 6 times a month to get an idea of what's going on and to challenge me to make sure I'm thinking about things in the right kind of way and also remind me about new technologies and new approaches and to be informed by their enthusiasm. So I think I carve out time purposely to allow that to happen.
Of course, I like to push the 5-slide pitch deck, right? That's the briefest form of what you can do there. Has any vendor ever done a 5-slide pitch deck to you?
So, Ron, I was going to mention that, but since you did already.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes, that's right. I find that to be an extremely helpful approach. To the point about saving time and getting to the point, you immediately can get to know, very quickly get to know. I think, Ron, in some of your videos that you've posted, it's super helpful to me. I mean, just seeing that, the clarity of it all. And I know you make it fun because in some cases you've got animation and characters there, but it really is serious business, like superheroes are. They are fun, and it is interesting, but getting to the point quickly is crucial.
Well, speaking of another superhero, Upgrade has a question for you.
Tom, what sort of next generation cyber attacks worry you? Deep fakes, egregious government oversight, attacks on phones, Bitcoin.
I will say that all of those things are on my radar. I think that they're further out on my risk concern. In some cases, are further out on my risk concerns. For quantum, we are keeping an eye on that. I think based on our company and how we use encryption, we'll be relying on significant vendors who are making significant investments and then, adopting not the raw technology, but their finished product as we go forward. And I won't go through each of these, but all of those, we have some amount of information that we're monitoring for them, some more than others. Deepfakes is a very interesting one. We're in the business where we protect our clients' information, but we also have to be mindful, right, of protecting our own corporate environment. And there's many instances where you'll see in the news where deepfakes have been used to convince people to do the wrong thing, like pay a bill or purchase order or something like that. So they're all on our minds, some closer and more important than others.
I think it's interesting, the deepfake conversation, because we've been pitched a lot of these things, and it's scary to think that somebody can just, take my voice, animate this, say, hey, I want you to wire $1 million to this company over here. But a lot of times I haven't seen that technology put into a place where it's going to stop people when they're weakest, and simpler things like just having a carrier provider that doesn't let you swap out SIMs and stuff like that is like an easier to go thing.
It's a very, very good point. We don't solely rely on technology to solve problems. In many instances, our employees, and in some cases their families, are a crucial control in understanding fraud or other kinds of issues that may be coming up. I think it may be just too hard to expect that technology is going to be a problem solver for everything. Arming people with knowledge, giving them hope, and helping them understand that they really are good risk managers, that's crucial. And the phrase I hear often, right, is if you see something, say something. That's valid here for deepfakes too. And the most important thing I also find is to mitigate a bad actor, space and time are your friend. And if you can just pause a bit and focus on that space and time, call somebody back, get a cup of coffee, take a break and come back, you're really going to put yourself in a much better situation.
That's definitely great advice. So speaking of advice, we've had a lot of conversations about, companies that we think we're tracking, that we might want to invest in, that could be good for this. What is your advice? As Tom Quinn, from where you sit, what's your advice for cyber startups in 2024?
Be very clear on what you do and what you don't do. The question I ask any company that I come across is, what problem are you solving for? And in talking with them, sometimes I eventually get to hear, well, we're solving for a revenue problem. And while I appreciate that, that's not my problem. In some cases, people think that they have a great idea and they're solving for knowledge about their great idea. And that's often not my problem I'm solving for either. Helping people crisply understand, and your 5-page pitch deck really gets to this. Are you solving for a lack of skills and capability? Are you solving for a known lack of technology? Are you solving for performance or cost? Get to the point. And whatever it is, hone in on that. Get right to the point quickly. But that would be my advice. At a ground truth level, understand what you're really doing and how it's helping others.
That's excellent. I'm sure a lot of folks will appreciate hearing that. So there's so many things we could talk about as being a CISO for T. Rowe Price in the financial sector. We have the SEC. We have the role of the government. We have these nation state threats and whatnot. I wanted to focus on products, right? But one thing that I thought was relevant to the professionalization of our industry was how folks in cybersecurity can volunteer at nonprofits. And you have spent a good bit of time not only helping us out on our grants for the Google Tech Foundation, but you do the virtual CISO thing. How does being a virtual CISO make you a better CISO and be more exposed to technology problems and products?
Well, firstly, I feel very honored to participate in the work that you and Cindy do. I think it's terrific. So, thank you. I've had an opportunity, and this is through my company. So we have an opportunity to contribute to startups, to nonprofits, and often it may be to do fundraising and the like. And I came across one where it was to be a virtual CISO. And what I found was it really allowed me to get to the heart of helping people solve problems and helping especially non-technology people better understand the problems that they have with technology, that they felt comfortable and confident to ask the right questions. And not that they're going to be experts, not that they're going to be computer science majors or they're going to be cybersecurity professionals, but to feel confident, to trust their judgment and ask, and more importantly, ask for help. So I've done that a few times. I get a tremendous amount of joy out of that. And the feedback I got was I was helpful. I am on a board of directors for a nonprofit as well, Girls Security, helping young women prepare for national security roles. And I bring my experience as a CISO to that as well, and in many cases help them come up with crisis management plans or maybe risk assessments and the like. So I think it's crucial to give back, and I think nonprofits are a good place to try to do that.
That's excellent. Well, it's always good to hear about Girls Security, and of course, being a virtual CISO. I think it's really good for the imposter syndrome as well. People sometimes, they might look at your career, they might look at something, I'm never going to get there. But if they can help out somebody else, they're going to, that's the kind of stuff they can build on. All right, Tom, where can people go to contact you? Where can they pitch? I want every vendor to go pitch to you a price right now. Right? What's the best way for people listening to get in touch with you?
I do have a LinkedIn account. That's certainly one way for people to get a hold of me. I do respond, especially if there's something that looks like it's going to meet a need for me. I regularly get outreach as well in that way for professionals in our in the cyber community too. They certainly can get a hold of you, Ron is a friend, and I have an opportunity to get connected on a whole variety of things, whether it's career oriented or other, and that's important. And then I would consider industry groups too. If we're in an industry group called Financial Services Information Sharing and Analysis Center, there's opportunities to get in front of CISOs like me, and at scale. And they're always interested in talking to technology companies who can help the industry. So hopefully those are three ways that people could do that.
That's excellent. Tom, thank you so much for joining us here at the Google Tech Adventures podcast studios, right? It's always a pleasure to see you, and I really appreciate you taking some time to share your thoughts on selling cyber products, procuring cyber products in the financial industry.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I hope everybody enjoyed that. If you'd be so kind, give us a like and a follow on our YouTube channel here. You can always contact me, as Tom said, on LinkedIn as well. And I hope you have a great week. Thanks for watching.